$50, that's the price of the machine that just made your bug-out plan obsolete. A $50 drone with a basic thermal attachment can detect your body heat through 200 feet of forest canopy in total darkness. It can identify your campfire smoke from 3 kilometers away. It can follow your vehicle without headlights and transmit your GPS coordinates in real time to anyone who wants to know where you are, 28 minutes per battery charge. Returns home automatically when power drops low, like a hunting dog that never tires and never misses a scent. That's what's flying above you right now, during normal times. In a collapse scenario, calculate what that means. Most preppers are still building for the last war. Bunkers, bug-out bags. 3 months of freeze-dried calories in a basement that a drone with a 4000 camera can identify through an open window from 400 feet up. The threat model changed. The tools changed. The rules changed. And if you haven't changed with them, you're not prepared. You're just comfortable with the wrong plan. I spent over 400 hours building this briefing. Military drone doctrine, DARPA procurement records, FAA operational datasets, open-source intelligence methodology from former ISR analysts, field reports from conflict zones in Ukraine and Nagorno-Karabakh, where civilian populations were tracked and targeted using commercially available DJI hardware, the exact platforms at your local Best Buy, peer-reviewed research from MIT Lincoln Laboratory on acoustic drone detection, thermal signature suppression studies from the Journal of Infrared Physics, counter-UAS white papers from RAND Corporation, community field intelligence from prepper networks in rural Idaho, Montana, and the Ozarks, all of it cross-referenced, field-tested, and distilled into what you're about to hear. This is not theory. The hardware already exists. The price already dropped. The tactics already transferred from battlefields to backyards. 7 rules. Every single one of them. Break something you currently believe about survival preparation. Before the rules, I need to give you the framework I used to build them, because if you hand someone a list without the logic underneath it, they pick the parts that feel comfortable and ignore the parts that actually save them. That's selective denial with extra steps. 4 filters. All 4 must pass to earn a spot in this briefing. Filter 1. Is it already happening? Not theoretically possible. Already happening. Documented in real conflicts, real law enforcement operations. Real-world field tests. We are not speculating about the future. We are catching up to the present. Filter 2. Is the hardware accessible? Price point under $1,000 for consumer hardware. Available within 72 hours of a purchase decision. Number specialized license required. If it takes a state actor with a $40 million budget, it's not your immediate problem. Filter 3. Does it break a core prepper assumption? Not a tweak. A demolition. Each rule dismantles a foundational belief the preparedness community has built strategy on for decades. Filter 4. Is there a countermeasure? I will not describe a threat without telling you what to do about it. Threat without countermeasure is fear pornography. We're in the ready business. 7 rules. Let's go. Most preppers think smoke discipline means not letting someone smell your fire. Wrong. Completely wrong. Dangerously wrong. A consumer-grade thermal drone, the DJI Mavic 3T, current street price around $4,800, detects a campfire thermal bloom from 2.2 kilometers in total darkness, not the smoke. The temperature differential between your fire and surrounding environment, visible as a bright white signature on a 640x512 sensor, updating 30 times per second. Here's the mechanism. Thermal radiation infrared light travels in straight lines. A thermal camera doesn't need photons bouncing off your flames. It reads the energy your fire emits directly. A rock wall blocks line of sight to your flames, but not the thermal bloom rising above your position. Heat rises. Thermal signature expands upward. A drone overhead doesn't need to see your fire at ground level. It sees the air column above you. Let that settle. The real countermeasure is thermal masking. Not a smaller fire. A small fire still registers at a kilometer plus. Covered cooking positions with lateral cover on all 4 compass points, blocking the upward thermal column. A Dakota fire hole drops your thermal signature by roughly 70% compared to an open campfire of equivalent output. That's the difference between invisible and obvious. And your body is a signature too. A resting human at 98.6 degrees in a 40-degree night is a bright white blob at 600 feet. A Mylar space blanket held against the body reflects thermal energy back inward, but only when static. Movement destroys the geometry. Partial countermeasure. Know the difference. There's a reason military units in drone-contested environments cook 1 meal per day at pre-dawn hours, when thermal contrast is lowest. Think about what that means for your camp schedule. We went to hot food twice a day when we were training. Once we put the drone up and saw what it looked like from above, we went to once, before light. Former wildland firefighter, Eastern Oregon Preparedness Community. Rule 7. Your fire is a lighthouse. Build accordingly. Nobody in the prepper community is talking about acoustic drone detection. That's a significant mistake. A DJI Mini 4 Pro produces a distinct acoustic signature between 80 and 240 Hz. peaking around 110 Hz with harmonics at multiples of blade rotation frequency. That signature is reproducible, identifiable with freely available software, and detectable with a standard directional microphone from approximately 300 meters in low ambient noise conditions. This is how militaries already track small UAS, not radar, which sees consumer drones as roughly equivalent to a medium-sized bird, but acoustic arrays paired with trained detection software. Now, the flip side, and this is where Rule 6 actually lives. You make acoustic signatures too, predictable ones. A 2000 watt generator at 50% load produces 68 decibels at 7 meters. Sound attenuates roughly 6 decibels per doubling of distance in open air. At 400 meters, you're still pushing 40 decibels, audible above rural ambient nighttime noise floor. A drone doesn't have to see your generator. It can hear it triangulate the source and send a visual scout to confirm. Same logic applies to dogs, chainsaws, ATVs, and hammers. Commercial acoustic vehicle detection arrays capable of exactly this sell for $12,000 per unit in Latvia right now. In 3 years, that technology will be in consumer drone payloads. Probably less. Countermeasure, sound attenuation, not silence. Generator enclosures with mass-loaded vinyl lining reduce output by 1.5. 20 decibels, enough to drop below ambient noise floor at 200 meters in moderate wind. Schedule operations during natural ambient peaks, morning bird activity, wind events, passing weather systems. The principle is 80 years old. You can't be silent. You can be quieter than the background. That's the mission. I can hear neighbors 2 miles down the valley when it's still. Always could. Just never thought about it as a problem until now. Tennessee Appalachian Preparedness Community member. The prepper community has always worshipped distance. Go remote enough. Put 50 miles between yourself and the nearest population center. Distance as survival strategy. Here's the sentence that breaks that assumption. The DJI Matrice 350 RTK has a 20-kilometer transmission range. Modified long-range systems using open-source ArduPilot firmware extend that to 60 kilometers with components from any electronics retailer. Not 5 miles. Not 10 miles. 60 kilometers in a straight line. Let that sink in. The tactical implication, a motivated operator in a collapse scenario, doesn't have to reach you physically. They operate from a building 30 miles away, deploy a thermal drone, and systematically survey every property within their operational radius. This is exactly what Ukrainian territorial defense units did in 2023, mapping supply lines from extended standoff ranges, identifying positions without direct engagement. The assumption that remote means undetectable is gone. Distance provides buffer time, not invisibility. Countermeasures are layered. Reduce your optical signature. Vegetation canopy over key structures is tactical, not cosmetic, because metal roofs reflect infrared solar energy and create obvious thermal signatures that canopy suppresses. Reduce your electromagnetic footprint. Radio communications, Wi-Fi routers, cellular signals all produce detectable RF signatures, and there are already commercial drones designed for signals intelligence, carrying RF sniffing payloads that map communication sources on the ground. Remote location is a factor, not a solution. We now have mathematical confirmation of exactly what it's worth and exactly where it falls short. Walk with me. Picture your bug-out route. You've driven it 12 times. You know the secondary roads, the choke points, where the bridge washes out in spring and the alternate crossing 2 miles north. You feel confident about it. Now picture a drone flying that route at 400 feet, high enough to stay above most small arms fire, low enough to capture 4,000 video with optical zoom sufficient to read license plates. It takes 9 minutes to fly a 20-kilometer route at cruise speed. 9 minutes. In Ukraine, movement on a road is now considered potentially observed movement, documented on both sides as standard doctrine. A drone operator controlling the air above a critical corridor controls actionable intelligence about everyone moving through it. Vehicle type, occupant count, direction, load profile. That information doesn't just satisfy curiosity, it enables interception. If a hostile group knows you're moving north on County Road 7 in a gray F-250 with 3 adults and 2 children, they don't patrol every road. They position one person at the right intersection and wait. You are planning to bug out on roads. 3 specific countermeasures, because this is where most plans fall apart most catastrophically. Route variance. Never use the same route twice. Not in training, not in practice runs. Drone operators conduct reconnaissance before operations. If they've observed your vehicle on the same road at the same time on multiple occasions, they've already mapped your pattern. Pattern discipline is as critical as route selection. Movement timing. The 30-minute windows before sunrise and after sunset offer weakest drone observational conditions. Consumer cameras struggle with mixed ambient and sky glow lighting. Thermal works but reveals less identifying detail about vehicle type and occupant count. Move in those windows when possible. Terrain masking. oldest military movement principle in existence, applies perfectly to the drone threat. Move along terrain features with overhead concealment, river valleys with canopy cover, tree lines on the low side of ridges, road cuts through high ground. A drone at 400 feet has excellent visibility of open terrain and very limited visibility of road surfaces beneath closed forest canopy. Choose your route based on canopy, not just road surface quality. Road was wrong from day one. We went overland, stayed in the tree line the whole way. Took 4 hours instead of 1. Got there. Pacific Northwest Preparedness Network member. Here's something nobody in the prepper community wants to hear. That Baofeng UV-5R, the 117 million preppers bought for $25, broadcasts a radio frequency signature that a drone carrying a software-defined radio payload can detect, identify, and geolocate from 500 meters altitude. The SDR payload, a Hack RF-1, cost $35, weight 35 grams, fits in the payload bay of a DJI Mini 4, with room to spare. Scan range, 0-6 gigahertz. It logs every transmission, frequency, signal strength, bearing. 2 passes over the same area enables triangulation of any active transmitter to within 50 meters. 50 meters, 2 house lots. The prepper community's standard communications protocol, schedule-based radio checks on a shared frequency, is optimized for the pre-drone world. Code words prevent a human eavesdropper from understanding your content. They do nothing against a SIGing drone, logging your transmission signature, the RF fingerprint of your specific radio's oscillator, differentiable from other radios of the same model. Countermeasures are protocol-based, not hardware-based. Transmission brevity sub-5-second transmissions are significantly harder to geolocate than 30-second ones. Develop a protocol where all check-ins are 5 seconds or less. Frequency agility. Pre-program a rotation schedule. Not random, which fails under stress, but a simple numbered sequence your team can execute from memory. Day 1 at frequency alpha, day 2 at Bravo. Positional separation. Don't transmit from your primary position. Move 300 meters to a dedicated transmission point. Make contact. Return. You're separating the geolocated RF fix from your actual living position, and the countermeasure most people won't implement. Reduce radio dependency entirely. Physical messenger systems for short-range tactical communication. 2 people, a defined route, a defined meeting point, a defined schedule. 0 RF signature. The Amish have been running this protocol for 200 years for entirely different reasons, and their communication security turns out to be better than most prepper radio networks. Make of that what you will. Someone told me radio discipline meant being quiet on the air. I understood it wrong the whole time. Being quiet on the air means not being on the air. Former amateur radio operator, rural Kansas. We've been talking about single drones, single platforms, single operators. Stop thinking like that. In 2023, documented across multiple open-source intelligence reports and NATO adjunct think tank analyses, groups of 8 to 12 consumer drones, DJI platforms, modified FPV racers, hobbyist multi-reorders, deployed in coordinated patterns to overwhelm single defensive positions, not all of them carrying physical payloads. Some are scouts, some are RF jammers. Some are decoys designed to draw defensive attention while the functional units move on vector. The coordination doesn't require sophisticated AI. It requires one operator with a map, a radio, and a clear objective. Now transpose that to a rural preparedness compound. 5 to 10 people defending a perimeter, 1 person on watch at any given time. 12 drones approaching from multiple compass vectors simultaneously in darkness. 1 person cannot track 12 aerial objects in 3 dimensions at night, even with full alerting of all occupants. The reaction time problem is geometrically worse with each additional platform in the swarm. This is not advanced military doctrine. This is basic magician's misdirection applied to tactical operations. 2 loud, fast, low-altitude drones at close range capture all defender attention. The other 10 proceed unmolested. It works on trained soldiers. It destroys unprepared civilians. Here's the number that matters. You need a minimum of 3 to 4 observation positions, properly spaced, properly oriented, to maintain visual coverage of all approach vectors during a swarm event. 3 to 4 capable, trained people dedicated to aerial observation, not counting ground perimeter security, communications, medical support. The minimum viable community for defending against coordinated drone swarm tactics is 8 to 12 adults, because security under the drone threat model requires distributed, overlapping, sustained observation. The arithmetic doesn't negotiate. The lone wolf prepper isn't just struggling, they're architecturally incapable of meeting the threat. Additional countermeasures, acoustic sensor arrays, Drone Watcher Pro, running on standard microphone hardware, deployed at 300-400 meter radius by lead time. Not much, but enough for alerting and repositioning. RF jamming at the community level occupies a significant legal gray area worth understanding before you need it rather than during. Hardened observation infrastructure, permanent positions with overhead cover, thermal viewing capability, and redundant comms to a central coordination point converts your community from reactive to prepared. This is geometry, not opinion. We thought we were a community because we knew each other's names. Then we mapped our watch schedule against a 6-drone scenario and realized we didn't cover 2 sides. Started rebuilding from scratch. Preparedness Community Coordinator, Rural Montana. Here's the rule that overrides all others. The one that makes every other countermeasure more effective. The one most preppers will read, agree with intellectually, and completely fail to act on because it requires doing something rather than buying something. The decisive asymmetry in any conflict where drones are present is not weapons or walls or supplies. It is the intelligence picture. Who knows where the threat is before it arrives? Who sees the choke point before entering it? Who identifies the hostile position before being identified? Intelligence. Not firepower, not fortification. Intelligence. And for the first time in human history, persistent area surveillance intelligence is available to non-state actors with a consumer budget and 30 minutes of practice. A DJI Mini 4 Pro weighs 249 grams, below 250 grams in most jurisdictions. Registration requirements are simplified. Not a typo. The weight limit is deliberate and the Mini 4 Pro was engineered to hit it. Cost, $760. Flight time, 34 minutes per battery. Transmission range, 18 kilometers. Live 4,000 feet to a smartphone app. Obstacle avoidance sensors. Automated return to home. Active track function that follows a designated target. A vehicle, a person, an animal, autonomously while the operator focuses on other tasks. And it is nearly silent at 300 feet in any ambient wind above 5 miles per hour. You will not hear it coming. Walk with me through a morning operation. Before your first work party leaves your compound perimeter, you deploy a drone on a 15-minute route survey of your primary access roads. The 3 kilometers of unpaved track between your position and the nearest paved highway. You're looking for vehicle tracks that weren't there yesterday. Foot traffic. Signs of a static observation position. Anyone waiting in cover along your approach corridor. This survey takes 1 person and 20 minutes of flight time. It generates intelligence that would otherwise require a 2-person foot patrol taking 3 hours, and those 2 people are exposed as vulnerable targets the entire time. The leverage ratio is extraordinary. 20 minutes of drone flight equals 6 hours of foot patrol with 0 human exposure to ambush. This is why every military unit operating in drone-contested environments now runs a route survey protocol before any vehicle or foot movement. Not sometimes, every single time, before every movement, regardless of how quiet things have been. Now extend that logic. Water sources, outer perimeter, approach routes from all compass points. The abandoned property 800 meters north that you've always been vaguely nervous about. With a capable operator and 4 charged batteries, $120 in additional hardware, you maintain persistent situational awareness over a 2-kilometer radius for 6 to 8 hours of operational time per day. That is not a marginal improvement over previous preparedness security models. That is a fundamental restructuring of what a small community can know about its environment in real time. Now the catches, and I will not bury them because they matter enormously. Drone operation is a perishable skill. It requires practice, not watching videos about practice, actual flight hours. Scenario-based training, battery management, malfunction response, operating in wind, operating at night with degraded visibility. A drone you've flown 12 times is a moderately useful tool. A drone you've flown 200 times in varied conditions is a force multiplier. There is no substitute for hours. Batteries degrade. Lithium polymer cells, the chemistry in virtually every consumer drone, lose capacity with charge cycles and temperature exposure. A battery, rated for 34 minutes at 22 degrees Celsius, delivers approximately 20 minutes at 0 degrees Celsius. In winter operational environments, battery performance drops precipitously. Account for this in your flight planning, or you will lose a drone, which in a collapse scenario with no next-day delivery is a permanent, unrecoverable capability loss. And the adversary has them too. This is the principle that ties all 7 rules into a single strategic framework. Everything your drone can see, their drone sees too. The thermal signatures you leave, the RF emissions you broadcast, the route patterns you establish. If your compound has visible thermal output, audible generators, pattern road movement, and no overhead canopy, their 20-minute survey just told them everything they need. You are either the observer or the observed. No option to sit out the technology and hope it doesn't find you. The prepper community built its entire strategic doctrine on the premise that distance, concealment, and firepower solve most problems. Distance is now measured in drone flight minutes. Concealment is now measured in thermal signature differentials and RF emission windows. And a shotgun. Let's be blunt about this. is a poor counter-UAS system against a platform at 200 feet maneuvering at 40 miles per hour. The doctrine needs a full rebuild. Here's a sentence that changes everything. The $760 drone in a box in your closet is not preparation. The $760 drone you've flown 200 times in every light condition and weather scenario, paired with 4 charged batteries, a pre-programmed route library, and 2 other community members who can operate it when you're unavailable. That is preparation. Doesn't care about your budget. The technology operates on cold, indifferent reality. The person with the best intelligence picture wins. The person flying blind loses, and losing in this context is not an abstract competitive outcome. We bought it because it seemed cool. First time I flew it over the ridge and saw the neighbor's place 3 miles away. Just saw everything. I understood what we'd been missing. Spent the next 2 weekends learning how to be invisible from the same altitude. Ozark Plateau Preparedness Community Coordinator. Build your drone capability. Train with it obsessively. Integrate it into your security protocols before those protocols are tested by something other than a training exercise. The sky is not neutral anymore. Act like it. 7 rules, all of them already real. None requiring future technology to execute against you today. 3 choices from here. Ignore this and keep building the last war bunker. Acknowledge it intellectually. Feel briefly uncomfortable, buy another bag of beans, and pretend you handled it. Or actually restructure your security model around the threat that exists right now, not the threat that exists when your grandfather's generation wrote the first survival manuals. Your thermal signature is visible right now. Your RF emissions are detectable right now. Your route patterns are mappable right now. Your lone wolf strategy is geometrically insufficient right now. These are not warnings about the future. These are conditions of the present. Go airborne. Learn the view from 400 feet. Because something else is already up there, and it's been looking at you this whole time. Subscribe. The next briefing covers counter-UAS specifically, what actually works, what's legally viable, and what the community is already deploying in the field. You're going to need it. Surveillance.